So eggs. So a lot of us are here because we want fresh eggs. Once again, they typically start to lay 16 to 24 weeks. Can be sooner, can be later. Pay attention to their combs and wattles. So once they start laying, their combs and stuff on the top of their head will be like a dark red color. It'll be a little swollen along with their wattles. If that ever looks like pale to you, that means that something's wrong, and if she could possibly be stop laying, or she's just not feeling well. They'll have a little more room between their pelvic bones, okay? And then this one your kids will notice. They'll be chasing them around, and then all of a sudden the bird will stop and squat. It means she's going to lay an egg soon.
So I've got a Rhode Island red that she walks like a penguin. She didn't start that way, but she's like all the time now. I don't know why.
So is she laying okay?
I don't know that she's laying.
Okay.
Yeah.
How long ago did it start?
We acquired a bunch of chickens 2 months ago.
Yeah. And it was probably about a month that she started walking that way.
Okay. Maybe she got hurt somewhere along the line with one of the other birds. I mean,
kind of house drama.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to tell, but maybe just keep an eye on it. Make sure that it doesn't get worse.
She hasn't gotten worse, but
she got a little
had a neighbor dog. We went from 11 chickens to we now have 3 pens in a day. It was awful, but she's also now got a sore on her back as well. So
yep. Yeah, so there's a couple stuff afterwards that we'll talk about that you can kind of spray on there. I know Cal Ranch sells, I want to say it's Do Not Peck.
Pectomore?
Yeah, Pectomore, thank you. I knew it was somewhere along that line that you can spray on them.
Okay.
So chickens love the color red, so if she's definitely got a sore going on, the other chickens are going to start to peck her. So to get some Pectomore might help.
Okay.
Question?
Okay, why would they stop laying eggs?
So that can be many, many things. The number one reason why they stop laying is they're going to go through molt. Chickens get stressed out very easily too. So like your situation where there was a dog involved could really stress out a chicken. That could cause them to stop laying. The neighbor dog sitting there barking at it for an hour while they're in their coops, that could stress them out. So it's a lot of different things that can make them stop laying.
You don't feel good, weather change maybe too sudden, like it's been 70 degrees and then it decided to snow, or,
My situation yesterday. It was 70 degrees and it was snowing this morning when I left. So once again, just as a reminder, have all your nesting boxes ready. So at Cal Ranch, they do sell the eggs.
Yes. The
ceramic. Thank you. Gosh, thank you. I do have some wooden eggs that I can send you guys home with as well. You can put it in their nesting boxes to kind of help entice laying. Just kind of point them in the direction where you want them to lay. That doesn't always work, but and just remember too, when they start laying, like their eggs are going to be misshaped, misformed, and all sorts of stuff. It just takes them a while to kind of get in the groove, the routine. So this is actually my picture when I started with Nutrena a few years ago. I did a little experiment with my homegrown chickens and a store-bought egg. Can you tell me what one's mine? Who said the bottom? You did. Yep. The bottom one's mine. So just look how good that looks. Number one thing, I knew what was put into that egg, and I knew what I was getting out of it. The other thing, the store-bought eggs, we don't really know what they're eating. But yeah, just the quality of the egg. And to me, honestly, I don't know if it's just me, but they taste better when they're homegrown. So,
Yep.
yeah. So most productive area for them is about 2 to 4-ish area. About 5 years old, they kind of start to taper off a little bit in their laying. So maybe you're used to getting 5 to 6 eggs a week, and now you're only starting to get maybe 3 to 4. Okay, that's normal. The oldest chicken to date to still continue to lay is 10 years old. So woohoo, go rogue! She's 10. Like I said, it'll become irregular, and then all of a sudden it'll just stop. So like you guys that are raising meat birds, if you have a dual purpose bird like a Rhode Island red, you can eat her afterwards. She's done laying. So once again, feed. So we actually have that one on display over there.
Put in one right there.
Yep, so once again, 16 weeks, switch over to a 16% layer. And then these two things right here that I have, grit and oyster shell. So why would I need grit? Grit's just little tiny small rocks. I seen you doing this. Yep. Yeah, so chickens can't chew, right? And so they need a little extra help with what they eat to help grind up their food. So a couple years ago, I had a lady come to one of these classes. She was new to chickens. Her chickens were full grown outside. She let them out of her chicken coop for the first time, and her chicken was walking across her carport and had been down and picked up a rock and ate it. And she was so concerned that her chicken ate a rock. And I'm like, it's okay, it's normal. She needed to do that, okay? So I always recommend that this is free of choice in their coop. This little bag right here is gonna last you a little while. It's not something that they usually eat every day. They usually only go to it when their body tells them that they need it, okay? So separately, I put mine in a bowl, put it in the corner of the coop, and just let it go. Oyster shell. So oyster shell is basically calcium. That's all it is, just extra calcium. So kind of like us, I take a vitamin every day, so our birds will get deficient in things as well. Biggest thing with this one is do not mix it with their feed. So all the feeds are formulated with calcium in them, okay? But once again, we tend to get deficient. Just like the grit, put it in its own container, in its own little corner, okay? And that bag will last you quite a while as well.
And then with the grit, so before you feed your chicks anything but chick starter, they're gonna need grit. They can process the chicken food on their own, they don't need that. But once you start, like when they're older,
Mealworms, anything like
giving them
that.
stuff like that before you switch them to this, they need the grit. So they won't be able to process like mealworms or anything like that.
Yep.
So, and they have like finer grit as well for like the little chicks. You can do the same thing, just stick it in the small little cup on the side.
Yeah. This is important. Do not feed them their eggshells. So I remember as a kid, my grandmother doing this all the time. She'd crush up the eggshells and she would feed it back to the birds. Well, we have determined actually that it will cause a problem, an egg eating habit, which I have a slide about egg eaters that I'll talk about in just a minute. But it's just important. Don't feed them back their eggshells.
Any questions so far? No?
Okay. All right, so this is important as well. So collect your eggs frequently, right? So in the summer months, especially where it gets really warm, I collect my eggs once a day. All right, throw away any that are cracked, okay? And then you can wash them if you want, but I don't wash my eggs. They actually just go in the fridge. But if you wash them when the egg is laid, oh my gosh, what am I trying to say? The hen has what's called a bloom that's laid over the egg, and it just helps kind of keep things fresh in there. By running it under water, you're taking that off. So ManaPro makes these wipes right here that are really good. It's just basically like a Clorox wipe that you can take if they're soiled and just kind of rub that stuff off. You can wash them if you want. I'm not saying that you can't, but just keep that in mind. They probably won't last as long as if you don't. And then storing the eggs in the refrigerator will help keep them longer. We're actually one of the only countries in the world that put our eggs in the refrigerator. A lot of other countries leave them out on the counter. So by doing this, you will preserve them a little longer. And then how do I determine if an egg is fresh? So maybe you've left and you've gone on a trip for, a week and a half or so. You come back and you're like, well, those eggs were in there, a few weeks before we left. I don't know if they're good. It's called the floating test. So you can put it in a bowl, okay?
Mixing bowl.
Yep, yeah. Mixing bowl, anything like that. Fill it with water, and then gently put the egg in there. Because if you just drop it and it sinks to the bottom, a lot of times they break. So gently put it in there. If the egg stays flat laying on its side, that means it's good. And then if it goes to the bottom and then it kind of raises up like that, means it's kind of getting on that verge. You better eat it tomorrow for your breakfast. And then if it floats to the top, throw it out. Okay, and how it floats to the top is so the bloom and stuff, the gases in the egg go to that, and that's what makes it float. Okay.
Has anybody tried that before? No?
Y'all are going to go home and try it now.
I did it. As soon as I found out, I went home and got all my eggs out.
You're going to do it. So we do have a couple of our feeds on display over there. So usually chickens don't need a whole lot of higher protein all the time. In the wintertime I do, but usually a 16% is where it's good for them. We've got our feather fixer, which I have a slide on, and then our Hardy Hen is one of our newest ones. It's a soy-free brand. It's 18% pellet, and then if you do have an all flock, ducks, turkeys, anything like that, and you don't want to buy separate feeds for them, we have one feed for all. Yeah. So, and then if you guys have questions afterwards, you're more than happy to come up and we can go in depth more. So scratch. Remember, as a kid, we actually only fed our birds scratch. They should never make up more than 10 to 15% of their diet. So my birds, once I turn them out, and when I go to put them to bed at night, that's the only time they get scratch. Put it in a bucket, shake it, I call to them, they come on the run because they know they're going to get a treat. I take it, throw it out on the ground, and it usually shouldn't take them more than 15 minutes to clean it up. By feeding scratch all the time, you're actually diluting your layer pellet that you're putting into them. So all the extra vitamins and all that stuff that's in the layer pellet, you're diluting all of that, okay? So just keep in mind, it is a treat. Okay, so molting. This is so scary if you don't know that it's coming, okay? Molting is the natural process. Every bird goes through molt, okay? They lose all their feathers.
What?
And then they regrow them. So, yes, yep. Usually happens in the November time when we fall behind that hour and the days are getting shorter. That's usually what kicks it off. They usually start to molt about 18 months as well, okay? Now, when I say in the fall, some birds will molt in the spring. My neighbor right now has a chicken running around with no tail feathers. She's molting. So
They're
some
not
can molt in
dying.
the spring.
They're not. They don't have some disease.
I
It's
promise.
totally natural.
They typically stop laying during this time. Some people will force their birds through molt because they want them to continue to lay. I don't do that just because she's going to lay about 265 eggs in a year. So I usually let her just have this time to rebuild all
How
her
long
nutrients.
does it take for that? What's that process?
Molting?
A couple weeks, a couple months?
Yep. So I actually have a slide
Oh,
that will
okay.
show you, but this is molt.
Oh man.
Same chicken.
Yeah, and that poor girl, it's a pretty serious molt. Okay? She actually had to be separated from the group because when they are that bad, their pin feathers and stuff can get damaged, and then she won't have any feathers because they were damaged until the next time she goes through molt.
Oh,
So,
poor little thing.
yep, and so
Will the roosters molt as well?
they will. Yep. Yeah. So, just like they have individual personalities, they do molt differently. Not every bird looks like her. Okay. Usually, it can take 3 to 4 weeks for them to start regrowing their feathers. Sometimes it can take 12 to 16. So, in the wintertime, I actually feed my birds the 18% protein, the feather fixer. Okay? Higher protein that I'm putting into her. Their pin feathers that they have are 85% protein. So by feeding them a higher protein, you're going to help increase that feather regrowth, and she'll get through it faster. Okay? If you don't do that, like I said, it could take about 12 to 16 weeks.
So do you just wake up one morning and all her feathers are gone?
It doesn't happen
It's
rapidly.
a slow process as well.
Right.
Losing them. Okay.
Yep.
So all
what
of these feeds would get the feather fixer does help specifically. But
Yep.
you have the Hardy Hen and all block are all the 18%.
Yep, little higher proteins.
So we've still got 2 chickens that the dog got to. One is our rooster, and like the little red has all of her back feathers are gone, and Rouge lost quite a bit too. So could I put him on that feather fixer? Will that help him? Both of them get that back?
You could, but have they already gone through molt? You don't know.
Have them at that time,
Okay,
so
okay.
I don't know.
So by not knowing if they've molted
They're
or
2
not.
to 3 years old is what they told us.
Okay.
So we'd assume.
Okay. So a lot of the time, like I said, if they get damaged or anything, they won't regrow until the next time they go through molt. So she could have a bare spot on her for a while. Okay. So.
Does that 3 to 4 weeks include the first signs of losing feathers?
Yep.
So it's from losing feathers to growing them back.
Yes. Yep.
Or-
So I actually have a little diagram here. This is Sally, and her head and neck feathers are usually the first to go, and then the back and the breasts, and then the tail feathers are usually always the last to go. When they regrow them, it also goes in this sequence. So But keep in mind, like I said, my neighbor, one bird just doesn't have tail feathers. Sometimes it could just be their neck. Sometimes it could just be their breast and their back, okay? Not all of them look like the poor girl. So Feather Fixer was specifically designed for birds going through molt, hence the name. Once again, the higher protein and stuff. I get this question all the time. Can I feed them both together? I don't recommend you feed a layer and Feather Fixer together. You can switch them off your layer to Feather Fixer. Then once they're done with the molting process, you can switch them back. Shouldn't mess with their digestive system or anything like that.
Or you can keep them on Feather Fixer.
Yeah. Yep. A lot of our kids that do 4-H that show birds, they feed Feather Fixer year round. So it is a little more expensive. I think it runs about, instead of $12.99 for the Nature Wide's layer pellet, usually runs about $17 to $18.
Do they all eat out of the same dish, or does every bird have their own dish?
No, they can all eat out of the same dish.
Okay.
Sometimes there's like a feeder you can hang or put on the ground. You can put 6-7 pounds of feed into it, and it has like a circle around it, so they can have enough feed for until it kind of runs out.
It should be on the other side of her enemy.
Yeah.
And
So
still be
like
able
how
to
it is, so like going into the store, they'd be more than happy. They have everything. They can show you what to get. Like that.
Yeah. And then once again, so scratch is just a treat, but my birds don't get any scratch during molt. Just because of I'm paying more money for the higher protein. I don't want to dilute what I'm paying more money putting into her.
So how do you prevent them from not eating it?
I just don't give it to them. Scratch.
Oh, the birds all together, or just that? How do you keep that one from not eating it?
So at the time, none of them get it.
Oh, yeah, okay.
They're all cut off.
Yeah.
So.
One go through your off.
Yeah, yep. So it's important to reduce stress during this time as much as possible. So if you have, a dog or something that's bothering them, it's best to try to keep them away. Small children handling the birds during this time. My niece a couple of years ago was chasing one of her birds around that was out of the coop. She was trying to get it back in there. She was also going through molt. She had cornered her in the haystack and just reached down really quick and grabbed her. Well, what happened is she damaged her pin feathers on this side, and she didn't regrow them until the next year. So just keep that in mind. The pin feathers are very tender and very fragile for them.
Yeah. So try not to touch, grab, little kids chase.
Yeah, well,
As much as possible.
hard lesson learned. Try to avoid bringing any new birds into the flock during this time, just because of parasites are really big. They're a bird, their feathers are their first line of defense. So when they don't have them, they're very susceptible to things like that. And they should act normal during this time. If they're not acting normal and they're unthrifty and they're not socializing, that means that something else is wrong.